What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk about with the snowstorm that's going to be impacting much of the upper south, as well as parts of the Atlanta area and parts of Mississippi and Alabama. There are winter storm watches in effect over there. But before we get into that, I want to go ahead and briefly discuss the California wildfires, since there's been a lot of requests for me to cover that, and we've been kind of extensively on it on Storms Unite and our storm codes and all that. Storms Unite currently is under a code purple because of these wildfires and the Santa Ana winds that are potentially bringing these fires towards very populated areas. Matter of fact, you actually can see the smoke and all that from satellite imagery right here. You can see the smoke from the wildfires from the satellite imagery. What's going on is these Santa Ana winds, which are coming off the Sierra Nevada mountains and through the valleys and all that stuff. That is igniting and really helping this wildfire spread through many areas in Los Angeles, including but not limited to Santa Clarita, Pasadena, those areas right there. And we are taking this very seriously on Storms United. We've been on this all night as more data and information continues to come out on it. In fact, I'm looking at my Discord right now. Current level code purple special situation. Code purple continues for all of the Los Angeles metro area. Several fires are ongoing through the LA metro and Southern California. Extreme fire danger and isolated gusts up to 100 miles per hour are possible. Follow all evacuation orders from local officials if told to evacuate. This is an extremely dangerous situation. Heightened fire danger and high winds will be likely throughout much of Southwest California. That is from John, who is our head admin at Storms United, who put that out this last night. So I wanted to go ahead and read that out for you guys just to kind of give you an idea. I'm sure we have some people tuning in from California, so I want to make that very clear. But the reason I am also covering this is because the same system that is bringing these Santa Ana winds, the same low pressure system that is bringing these Santa Ana winds to much of the Los Angeles area and bringing all these wildfires, is going to ignite this huge snowstorm that's going to be impacting Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and much of the deep south now. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Here's what we have from the National Weather Service right here. We have winter storm warnings in effect for parts of Texas, including the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and much of Arkansas right here. So we're going to have to pay attention to all this. Winter storm watches extend all the way to the Appalachian Mountains in Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia, which also now includes the Atlanta metro area, Huntsville, Alabama, and much of Mississippi over here, including the winter storm watch also curiously extends to Birmingham, Alabama. So we're going to have to see all of that right here. Let's go ahead and talk about the winter storm warnings that are currently in effect right now for the Dallas-Fort Worth region. Let's go ahead and do that, and we'll go ahead and zoom in this as well. So here's the winter storm warning. It's in effect from 6 a.m. Thursday till noon Friday. Heavy mixed precipitation with a transition to all snow Thursday evening. Total snow accumulations be between 2 and 4 inches. Isolated snowfall amounts could top 8 inches with more intense bands. That is very important. And for Dallas-Fort Worth, if that were to happen, that would be the most snow they have received since the 2021 Texas snowstorm, which that was already pretty bad over there, but they're gonna get some potential ice with this as well. I've been watching the runs with this, and we'll get to those in a little bit. Impacts. Travel could be very difficult. The hazardous conditions could impact the Thursday morning and evening commutes. If you must travel, bring an extra flashlight, food, water in your vehicle in case of emergency, that kind of stuff. General stuff as well. So that's what we have going on in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, granted, I think these 8-inch isolated areas are more so going to be in the northern parts of the suburbs. They're more likely to get that over there than maybe like downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth, for example. But regardless, still a very serious situation to watch as well. We have another winter storm warning in effect for much of Arkansas as well, Texarkana, that area right here. We're going to go ahead and start with Texarkana, and then we will get into parts of Arkansas right here. Heavy mixed precipitation is expected to between 2 and 6 inches with locally higher amounts, and ice accumulations up to 1/2 of an inch are expected. That is very concerning, to say the very least. And remember, we had a pretty bad ice storm for a lot of areas in Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky. This is even further south than that. And if we go ahead and go to Little Rock, around the Little Rock area in Arkansas for that winter storm warning, between 4 and 6 inches with locally greater amounts possible. A kind of a current trend I am noticing is with these locally greater amounts possible. That is very concerning to watch, and that is something you're going to have to pay attention to right there, and we'll continue to keep you updated on that. Let's go ahead and go further east and show some more of the winter storm watches. Let's go ahead and start in the Memphis area. We'll do Memphis, as which I believe will be in effect for parts of Mississippi as well. Parts of Mississippi as well. Between 3 and 6 inches possible for this part of Tennessee, and especially for the northern half of Mississippi. 3 to 6 inches for someone like me who lives in the Midwest may not seem like a lot, but 3 to 6 inches in that part of the South is quite a lot. And I made this point a little bit crudely in my last video, but the drivers in the South can't drive in this kind of snow. And someone in the comments also brought up a very important point, talking about that they can't just drive it. It's not just that; it's also they don't have the resources for snow. They don't have the resources for plows, salting the roads, all of that stuff. They don't prepare for that kind of stuff as much. So someone was bringing that up. That's also a bit of a big issue to it as well. The snow just stays on the roads, and you have to figure it out from there. So that's what we have with the winter storm watch in parts of the Mississippi right here. Let's go ahead and go to the Nashville region just to kind of show you, give you some more context and give you an idea of what we're looking at. 4 and 7 inches with locally higher amounts up to 8 inches possible. That 8-inch amount will likely be more in the upper elevations than not. But let's go ahead now and go to Alabama and Georgia. Here's what we have for the NWS in Huntsville right now. Winter storm watch in effect for that region. Let's go ahead and pull it up. Between 4 and 6 inches with possible with higher amounts up to 8 inches. Keep in mind, this isn't the Midwest right here. This is Alabama. This is northern Alabama, granted, but it's still very concerning, and a lot of these drivers don't know how to act when this stuff happens. So that's for what we have going on right there. And I want to check the Atlanta area to see what's going on. Okay, there's a probability from the NWS graphic in Atlanta right here. Probability of at least a tenth of an inch of ice accumulation. Let's go ahead and go to downtown Atlanta, see what the winter storm watch is in effect for. Here's what we have. A wintry mix of precipitation is possible. Snow and sleet accumulations in the mountains could average between 3 and 6 inches with locally higher amounts possible. Further south to the Interstate 20 corridor, a mixture of snow, sleet, freezing rain, and rain is likely. Snow accumulations of 2 to 4 inches is possible, with icing amounts around a tenth of an inch possible. Keep in mind, this isn't higher elevations. This is for the Atlanta metro region right here that we're looking at potential ice for. This is a situation where, and even where a lot of snow falls, no one can drive in. No, you can't drive on ice. There's no friction with ice. At least with snow, you have a much better chance of driving in that, but you get the general idea of what I'm trying to say right here. So that's this situation we're looking at for much of the upper south. We have winter storm watches for parts of Kentucky as well, and I would not be surprised if we see winter weather advisories go into effect for the Ozark Plateau, for parts of the St. Louis metro, for parts of southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, even into Ohio and those areas as well. But this current point, I've been taking quite a while talking about the NWS and all that stuff. We've been on for almost 9 minutes now at the time of recording this, talking about that as well as the California wildfires. So let's go ahead and get into some of the models of this, and we can kind of give you a general idea of what we are looking at. The NAM's finally far enough out to give us general impacts all across the region over there. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's go ahead and start with the North American model. The 12Z is actually already out at the time of filming this, so we'll use both the 0Z and the 12Z, but for this case, because I'm recording this at like 9:50 in the morning before classes start, I'm not going to use the 12Z runs aren't all exactly out. So I'll use both the 0Z and the 12Z to see what's kind of changed. So here's what we have with the 0Z. The 0Z NAM wants this in Dallas-Fort Worth to start as an ice storm and then transition over to rain, but it brings a large area of snowfall for parts of Arkansas, for parts of Louisiana at the back end of it a little bit, for much of Tennessee, as well as parts of the Midwest as well. It seems like there's two areas of snow right here that's going to merge together and allow for this to happen. It's going to bring snow to Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, those areas right there, and then it moves out to sea pretty much right there. So that's the general gist of what we have with the 0Z North American model. Here's the 12Z for a little bit of a change. Okay, and the change is the NAM wants this to a little bit further to the north, at least impact-wise in parts of DFW. I'm going to be honest, I don't exactly trust this northward shift right here, and we'll show you other models as to explain why, but that's what we have generally. It still brings snow, then sleet, then freezing rain to the Atlanta metro area, and then into much of North Carolina and Virginia as well, so we're going to have to pay very close attention to that. So that's what we have with the NAM. Let's go ahead and show you the GEM RDPS. Okay, the 12Z is starting to trickle out, but it doesn't go all the way out, so we'll use the 0Z just for context right here. Here's the 0Z GEM RDPS right here. Has the system organizing and developing right here in parts of Texas right here, and then apparently it skips a few hours, which is a little curious. Let's go ahead and reload that, see if this is just a bug or if this is something we're going to have to deal with. But regardless of that, that's what the GEM RDPS is showing. Let's go ahead and go back to the precip type. But yeah, it does skip a few hours, which is not convenient at all, but it is what it is. But regardless, it still puts Tennessee getting a lot of snow. It still gives Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia a huge ice storm from this right here, which is very concerning to see right here for those parts of the South. And then as it moves out to sea, it does fizzle out a little bit, but it still brings snow to Ohio, the Appalachians, Pennsylvania, New York, Nova, the Delmarva Peninsula. That's pretty interesting right here. GEM GDPS, similar situation. It doesn't skip as much right here, but you still see what you're seeing. It wants Dallas-Fort Worth to get an ice storm and then snow on the backside of that, and then it really ramps up and it brings a lot of snowfall once again to the Midwest and the Upper South. Where I'm most concerned about is the Upper South, not because of the snow totals, but because of the impacts. One thing I want you to remember from this video is we're not talking as much snow totals as we are impacts, and I made this clear in yesterday's video as well, but because this is like 6+ inches in an area that is not really used to 6+ inches, like the Upper South, like Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, those areas, compared to the Midwest. That's why I'm paying such close attention to this. So we're going to have to watch that. And then we have this Alberta Clipper system that's going to be moving through much of the United States. It's going to enter the Midwest, impact the Chicago area, and then some other areas in the Midwest before it fizzles out and does all of that stuff. And then we have a couple other Clipper systems to watch, but that's a story for another time. So that's what we have going on with the GEM GDPS. Let's go ahead and show you the GFS run right here. GFS has been pretty interesting to say the very least. GFS wants DFW to get mostly snow from this, especially on the backside of it, and that's why I think the NWS was talking about on the backside isolate up to 8 inches of snow possible in the heavier bands. And then it has much of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia getting snow from this. I think the NWS is mainly going off the GFS as well as a little bit of a blend from the GEM RDPS and the GEM GDPS. I think they've looked at the synoptics and they've figured that this is probably the most likely bet. That's kind of my best educated guess, and I only have 2 weeks of experience at an NWS office, so that's just an educated guess right there. So that's what we have going on. And then it brings a lot of North Carolina and South Carolina snow before it transitions to freezing rain and rain by and large. But still, interestingly, brings some snow to New Jersey, to the Delmarva Peninsula in the heavier bands. The snow stays just off the coast for it not to impact New England, but regardless of that, that is still going to bring a lot of impacts. So that's what we have going on with these models right here. Let's go ahead and show you snow accumulations as well as freezing rain accumulations, because that's going to be very important. Snow accumulations, starting with the NAM. This is the 0Z NAM right here. Ultimately, the most snow is going to be in northern Mississippi, much of Tennessee, particularly in the higher elevations, and in the Appalachian regions of North Carolina. You have all that going on. You're looking at a few inches of snow in the Midwest, particularly in Ohio. It looks like you're going to get like 3 to 5 inches of snow, and as well as some lake effect as well, particularly in Pennsylvania and New York. Let's go ahead and show you the freezing rain accumulation. Freezing rain is pretty interesting from the NAM. It brings a lot of ice and a lot of these areas to a lot of these areas. And this is not in the Midwest. This is in the deep South. This is Birmingham. This is potentially Montgomery. This is potentially around Jackson. This is around Yazoo City. This is around like central Mississippi. This is Shreveport. This is Atlanta we're talking about. And the NAM, I will tell you this, is overdoing it with the freezing rain in the Atlanta metro area. If Atlanta gotten 1 inch of ice, that would be absolutely catastrophic, because not only is it unsafe to drive, it's going to down power lines, it's going to cause hell on earth down there. I think 1 inch of ice is quite frankly unrealistic. I would even if you divide that figure by 2, honestly, that's still a little bit over the top, but that at least is a little bit more realistic. Realistically, I think up to 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch of ice is more possible at this current point. Same with South Carolina and North Carolina as well. If you divide those values by 2, they're still going to be very crippling, to say the very least. Let's go ahead now and show you the GEM RDPS. Okay, apparently there are no images available, but we can go ahead and pull a different sector of that. We'll have to split it up between 2 sectors. Unfortunately, okay, this is not the most optimal situation. We'll have to skip that. Here's the GEM GDPS. Right here, we'll use the snow accumulation from there. Generally in Texas, a bit of more of a shift to the north, but it's also bringing more ice accumulation to Dallas, Fort Worth, to much of these areas, to Texarkana, those areas. But the GEM GDPS wants 18 inches of snow in southeast Oklahoma. Likely not going to happen. I'm personally thinking at most you could see like 10 inches of snow, and that's a very worst case scenario most at that current point. But at the same time, the NWS has stressed locally higher amounts are possible with some of these values, and it also gives a lot of areas in the Midwest, for example, more snowfall than a lot of the other runs. For example, this run gives St. Louis almost 5 inches of snow. The Ozark Plateau about 7 inches of snow as well. The NWS has been looking at this. I think those values are a little bit unrealistic, but I still think 3 to 5 is possible for a lot of areas in the Midwest. We're just going to have to pay attention to that as well. So that's what we have for the GEM GDPS. Here's the European. European is still further to the south, but it's bringing the most snowfall to Texas and not as much to Tennessee. I'm going to be honest, I don't exactly trust this right here. I don't trust how far south the European is. I think generally where the GFS and the GEM GDPS is where it's going to be the most realistic, in my opinion. But that's just my take. Take it as you will. Always follow the local officials and always follow your local National Weather Service. But here's what we have. It wants Dallas-Fort Worth to get 8 to 9 inches of snow. Same with much of Arkansas. While the snowfall drops off quite a bit in Tennessee and those areas as well. I think, I'm going to be honest, I would shift this whole greatest snowfall area towards Tennessee like the rest of the runs are doing, but we'll have to pay attention to that as well. Lastly, we'll go ahead and show you the GFS, and we'll also show you the ice accumulation on the GFS because the rest of the runs I showed previously, unfortunately, do not offer it. But here's what we have with the GFS. GFS is pretty interesting. It wants areas around Dallas-Fort Worth to get anywhere from like 3 to 6 inches of snow, where areas in southern Oklahoma and Arkansas get anywhere from like 6 to 8, and then parts of Tennessee get anywhere, depending on where you are, get anywhere from like 3 inches at the very least to up to like 6 in the upper elevations. But this is another area I'm concerned about. You have 4 inches of snow in Birmingham, almost 3 in Atlanta. Those are areas that do not typically see snowfall at all in the season, and they're seeing snowfall here, so that is very concerning to say the very least. And then let's go ahead and show you the freezing rain accumulation. GFS is pretty interesting. They're having the most freezing rain accumulation, not in this, but in these areas right here in Tennessee, not Tennessee, but Georgia, Alabama, South, and the Carolinas right here. Up to 1/4 of an inch of ice is expected. Generally, I think this is a bit more realistic compared to like the North American model. I think it was way overdoing it. right there. But this is a situation that's going to have to evolve. The runs are starting to zero in and bring more snowfall to Tennessee and more ice accumulation to Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia and those areas. And those are all things we are going to have to pay attention to. And we will continue to update you here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us get more people engaged with weather. If you want to come hang out with us at Storms United and talk about this storm as well as the wildfires that are going on in California, be sure to join our Discord server. The link is in the end screen over there. And shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor channel. If you want to come support the channel more directly, join the Patreon. It's the link in the description down below. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.